Hi, George Rogers here. In this next set of videos, I want to share with you some insights that I've gained over the past 25 years of developing educational resources for use in public, private, and homeschool settings. I believe some of these ideas will represent things that you've not thought of in this way before. And I also believe that many of them can help add enjoyment to your role as a teacher and to your child's experiences as a learner. But most importantly, I believe that they can help your child learn some things that perhaps he or she might not have ever learned any other way. So in the words of Dumbledore, tuck in and enjoy. This is video number 17 in our series on homeschool curriculum, and in it I will give you my answer to the question, what is the most important skill a young person can develop? Actually, I think this applies to old people as well, but if a person develops it when they're young, it will serve them a lifetime. And my answer? Creative problem solving. To illustrate why I chose this particular skill, I would like to share with you the story of how Frederick Douglass learned to read and write. It's such an important lesson, I believe every young person should know his story. By way of background, Frederick was born a slave in the early 1800s. He never knew who his father was. His mother was on another plantation and had to walk all night just to see him for a few minutes and to be able to get back in time for her work in the fields the next day. So he only actually saw her a few times in his life. And like other slave children on that plantation, he was only clothed in a linen shirt and was fed cornmeal mush out of a trough, much as pigs are fed. As a result, he was often both hungry and cold. About the age of 8, he was sent to live with a Mr. and Mrs. Auld in Baltimore, to be their servant. Conditions were much better there. He had clothing and plenty to eat, but he was still a slave. The Aulds had a boy about Frederick's age, and shortly after arriving in their home, Mrs. Auld began teaching Frederick the ABCs along with her son. That is, until one day, Mr. Auld walked in on them, and when he saw what she was doing, became unglued. Although his language was very coarse, in essence what he told her is that if she taught him the ABCs, it would forever unfit Frederick to be a slave. All at once, as Frederick describes, a great mystery was unfolded to him, and he understood the power of the white man over the black, and determined he would learn to read and write. However, at this point, Mrs. Auld was no longer an ally, but was an opponent, and forbade him access to any form of reading or writing material. However, now Frederick was determined. He was able to find a small book, and at this time one of his responsibilities was to run errands for the family. He also had access to plenty of bread. In his neighborhood there were a number of little white boys who knew how to read but were less fortunate in having food. He settled on a plan whereby he would run his errands early and trade them bread to teach him how to read. In this manner, over a period of years, he learned how to read. How Frederick learned to write about the age of 12 was no less imaginative and no less inspiring. Near where he lived was a shipyard. On the wood pieces, which were prepared for a ship, the workers would mark in chalk the letters L for larboard, S for starboard, A for aft, and F for forward. If a piece was marked SF, it meant starboard, forward, and so forth. Frederick learned these 4 letters. Then he would find a white boy and say to him, "I know more letters than you do." The boy would say, "No, you don't." Frederick would say, "Yes, I do." They would argue a bit, and then the other boy would say, "Show me." At that point, Frederick would take a stick and draw the letters he had learned in the dirt and say, "Beat that." The boy then would look at the letters and write some letters of his own in the dirt, which Frederick would note, and then he would go and repeat the process with another boy. Later on, when the young Auld boy had used up some of his copybooks, and these copybooks were set aside and never referred to again, and Frederick would get them and write over the boy's writing time and time again, until, in his own words, "Thus, after a tedious effort for years, I finally succeeded in learning to write." Can you see from this example the importance and benefits of creative problem solving? Here was a slave boy, without a book, a pencil, or even a piece of paper of his own. The closest thing he had to family opposed his every effort, yet with nothing to commend him but a hunger for learning Inspired by an understanding of the nature of slavery and a vision of hope, he was able to muster the initiative, commitment, persistence, and patience necessary to learn how to read and write. And over a number of years, he was able to succeed. If you are interested in obtaining a copy of his story in his own words, you can do so at www.choiceskills.com/sample_lessons/grades5-9.html. Just mouse over the icons and click on the C icon with the paintbrush and palette. If you have found this video helpful and would like to receive other videos in the series on how to select a homeschool curriculum that's right for you and your child, go to www.homeschoolcurriculumfaq.com. Again, that's homeschoolcurriculumfaq.com. Also tell your friends. Thanks for joining in. Look forward to seeing you on video number 18, in which we will be discussing the question, why do we need to teach our children about faulty thinking?